What's up guys, it's Endymion, and today I want to discuss one of the most tragic characters within the world of Elden Ring and how his existence hints at powers we have yet to fully understand. And now let's begin talking about the veiled monarch, Morgott, the Omen King. Morgott was born alongside his twin brother Mog, with his mother being Queen Marika and his father the Lord of the Battlefield, Godfrey. Although being born from the womb of the chosen god, Morgott and his brother were cursed by a malformed affliction that caused the twins to be known as Omens. I've done a video in the past about omens, but to summarize, they're cursed beings that are covered in twisted horns and growths, as well as looking more ogre-like than humans in their anatomy. Omens are shunned by society and are seen by the Golden Order as blasphemous and having no right to exist amongst the citizens of the lands between. There are also theories that omens might be tied to something called the Crucible, but I'll explore that in a future video, so subscribe for that. Moving on, the item Omen Bairn gives us more insight. It states, "Doll of a curse-born bairn. Omen babies have all their horns excised, causing most to perish. These fetishes are made to memorialize them. Please don't hate me or curse me, please." These individuals would have their horns removed, leading to the Omen children usually dying, but upper-class or royalty-born Omens were treated different. The regal Omen Bairn states, "Doll of a curse-born bairn from the Erdtree's royal line. Omen babies born of royalty do not have their horns excised, but instead are kept underground, unbeknownst to anyone, imprisoned for eternity." Morgott was one of these Omen children, who were hidden from the world for the only reason being that his existence was seen as sacrilegious. And if the worshippers of the Golden Order realized that their savior's children were cursed, the religious status quo would likely be challenged and riots would ensue in the confusion and chaos. But this never stopped Morgott. Even though his blood was cursed, within him still ran the power of his bloodline. He would protect the Erdtree with all his being, but keeping himself to the shadows so that none would know who he truly was. This is how Morgott was able to rule Leyndell as its king, but would never show his face to his subjects, leading to Morgott being known as the Veiled Monarch. And once Godwyn was murdered and the Elden Ring was shattered, the royal capital of Leyndell was left defenseless, and with most of the chosen demigods now either weakened like Radahn or completely missing to most like Ranni, it left only Morgott the unbelievable task of protecting the Erdtree from any invaders. Eventually Morgott would take on a different name to conceal his identity, becoming known as Margit, the Fell Omen. The cloak states, "A cloak of ragged fur worn about the exposed body of Margit, the Fell Omen. Having slaughtered countless champions during the Shattering, the Fell Omen has become a horror to those who harbor ambitions for the Erdtree or for lordship." Morgott, or Margit as he would become known, was a brutal boogeyman that would hunt the Tarnished as well as anyone else who would even remotely try to claim title or power in the presence of the Erdtree. We eventually meet Morgott in his Margit identity before we reach Stormveil Castle, with Morgott attacking the chosen Tarnished to deny them the opportunity at becoming Elden Lord. When you watch Morgott fight, even in his dreadful accursed body, he's still able to conjure up weapons of pure light, which confirms that while cursed, he truly was the son of Marika and Godfrey, and his ferocious fighting style seems to suggest that he definitely inherited his father's furious lust for war and prowess in the heat of battle. However, it is puzzling why Morgott would want to protect the Erdtree and uphold its values when all the principles the Golden Order are based upon would downright shun him in return. His existence even led to an item capable of imprisoning him, even though he never showed any ill intentions towards the Erdtree or its people. The item, Margit's Shackle, states, "A fetish bathed in golden magic. Shackles were used to bind the accursed people called the Omen, and these ones were made to keep a particular Omen under strictest confinement. Though faint, the shackles still retained vestiges of power, enough to trap the once-bound Margit on Earth if only for a short time. Just the fact he was treated like some disease-ridden monster and had such shackles created in the first place just shows how much the Order and the people in power feared and hated Morgott for just simply existing. But there were some who actually allied with Morgott on his crusade to protect the Erdtree. They were known as the Knights Cavalry. Their armor set states, "The Knights Cavalry, who now wander the dim roads of night, were once led by the fell Omen and were deliverers of death for great warriors, knights, and champions. These shadow-clad warriors rode with Margit to protect the Erdtree, and they only ever appear at night." Which kind of makes sense, since that's when Morgott would likely also kill his prey, since the Cloak of Night would conceal his grotesque form and spread his infamy further. Since the Shattering, these cavalry knights seem to be stalking the various locations in the lands between, and it looks like they are still loyal and serve Morgott to some extent. But once you meet Morgott in Leyndell and his true identity is revealed, it seems like he's the only demigod that actually cares about preserving what his parents worked so hard to build. And even though he's cursed, Morgott sees the Chosen Tarnished as nothing but a blight on the world that must be purged so that Queen Marika's legacy can be left intact. The irony is that even in all his actions of protection and endless bloodshed, the walls of the Erdtree would never open for him. He would be shunned and looked down upon by the very things he fought to protect, no matter his actions. This everlasting duty to protect the teachings of the Golden Order were never met with any sense of peace, as stated by Morgott's remembrance. Though born one of the graceless Omen, Morgott took it upon himself to become the Erdtree's protector. He loved not in return, for he was never loved, but nevertheless, love it he did. The tragedy is made paramount when, even in death, Morgott was never given the one thing he fought so tirelessly for. He didn't want glory or rank, nor riches or even land. All Morgott really wanted was to be loved. He lived a life of isolation, never having any real friends. The fact Morgott was able to live in seclusion for so long and not lose his mind or reject the Erdtree shows just how devout and pure he was towards carrying his bloodline's legacy. But once Morgott is killed, we last see his corpse in the battle against his father Godfrey, who lifts the shriveled remains of his Omen-born son. But curiously, when looking at his corpse, Morgott's body seems to be free of the horns and de-evolution of his Omen birth. Having some players believe that Morgott was finally free of his curse, and the Erdtree, maybe in death, allowed Morgott to bathe in the grace he so desperately wanted. Whether Morgott finally got his wish and was able to be accepted, I can't say for certain, but it does seem likely. Even his great rune further solidifies who he was and how important his role meant. Morgott's great rune states, "This great rune is the anchor ring that houses the base and proves two things: that the Omen King was born of the golden lineage, and that he was indeed the Lord of Leyndell." So even his great rune positions Morgott as the unflinching base of the Elden Ring, meaning he was the one who held up the legacy figuratively and quite literally upon his very back with his actions. Ultimately, Morgott just wanted his family together again and wanted to be recognized as the loving son he always was by the parents who shunned him for his accursed birth. It's really a shame he never got to realize his dream. If Morgott was not born an Omen, I strongly believe he would have been as beloved, if not more so, than his brother Godwyn. And Morgott would have been an incredible king who would have united the lands between and its people, if not for his cursed existence and the prejudice of society. But that, my friends, is the story and tragedy of Morgott the Omen King, who upheld the beliefs and traditions of his bloodline while never being loved in return. He may have been the Omen King in life, but in death, he was finally grace given. Well, what do you think of Morgott and his story? Anything to add? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you for all your support on my Elden Ring series, and let me know what you want me to dive into next. Thanks to my patrons as always for their continued support, it means the world, and I'm Endymion. I'll see you in the next one.